So we're going to continue with the Psalms. This is book 2. And I thought I'd reflect for a moment on the different states of mind that we can find ourselves in. For the past day or two, I found myself so disturbed mentally, so far from my center or place of stability that it's hard to even perceive of the way back to a place of satisfaction or of manageable anxiety. Perhaps manageable anxiety is not the right way to describe it, but certainly this state is a state of elevated agitation, whereas the comforting state, or rather the secure state, is one of less agitation. And I know the reason. The reason is the lack of engagement, the lack of committing to an entry point into life. And I'll describe what that means in a moment. But this is not to say that this is how I am all the time, but rather it is to say that this happens in short bouts, periodically. And it's always interesting to observe now that I understand what it is and how to solve the problem. Yet it remains difficult, because life is not something that, perhaps not something that comes naturally. In order to live life and to be, there are certain requirements, certain sacrifices. Just sitting in one place will not satisfy the soul. And this entry point that I referred to is almost like a conversation. It's a state of mind, but most importantly, it's a way of being absorbed into something, whatever it might be, a practice, a ritual, a form of worship. For me, there are a few things that I have designed to fill this end. But it's also important to recognize that whatever we choose to fill this end matters. We can't partake in things and expect an equal outcome. There have been many that lived before us, that have walked many different paths. There have been many wise people to go through hardship and to analyze their hardship and bring their suffering into a state of being that they can tolerate. And when I think of the Psalms, I think of this sort of process. If it's read straight through, it can often feel like a sort of attention deficit type of individual, this sort of up and down, up and down, up and down, sort of questioning, the existential questioning, followed by the understanding and the praise and worship of God. And then again, it's, why am I forsaken? Why have you left me? Why has God left me? And it's an interesting roller coaster. But the roller coaster is, I think, a perennial one. Whether we choose to see it through this lens or not, the fact remains, humanity remains the same as it was then. And so let's continue here with Psalm 42. Why are you cast down, O my soul? To the choir master, a maskil of the son of Korah. As a deer pants for flowing streams, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my food, day and night, while they say to me all the day long, where is your God? These things I remember as I pour out my soul. How I would go with the throng and lead them in procession to the house of God, with glad shouts and songs of praise, a multitude keeping festival. Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. My soul is cast down within me, therefore I remember you. From the land of Jordan and of Hermon, from Mount Mizar, deep calls to deep. At the roar of your waterfalls, all your breakers and your waves have gone over me. By day the Lord commands his steadfast love, and at night his song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I go mourning? Because of the oppression of my enemies? As with a deadly wound in my bones, my adversaries taunt me, while they say to me all day long, where is your God? Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. And so this psalm, though I've never read it before, it seems to pick up, at least what I've said seems to resonate within the body of this psalm. We see its undulating nature, the asking of why is my soul cast down? And then followed by some sort of praise or worship in the Lord. There is a temptation from without that's referenced here multiple times by people who ask, where is your God? And God, of course, is referred to as a rock, this place of stability, this place to stand on. And from this place and point of stability, I think I understand that when somebody may ask, where is your God? They're sort of asking, where is your place of stability? If your soul is cast down, then where is your God? Why is it that you are not standing on firm ground? And the metaphor is, why is it that you are standing on unstable ground compared to the rock? And it's interesting to open the psalm with, as a deer pants for flowing streams, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? And so in my mind, I think of this as sort of in a natural sense. This soul, this word that we use to describe the finer desires of man, the finer being of man, it wants this God, it wants this place of stability, and like a deer, an animal almost instinctually looks for flowing streams. And so too the human being within the soul, almost as if this is an instinct, an appetite that must be quenched. Otherwise the absence of this divine intervention would lead to death. And certainly it would lead to a certain type of death without the divine spirit to hold us, to bring us to solid ground. It would lead to the death of a enlightened mind. It would lead to a hell, a psychiatric inconsistency. And so at the end of verse 2, he says, "When shall I come and appear before God?" It's an interesting statement. Interesting statement to ask oneself. When shall I come and appear before God? And the question almost assumes that this is out of his control. And I have to ask a question in response to that question. Why is it out of your control? Certainly there's something that you must be able to do that would allow you to appear before God, allow you to come to terms with your grievances and to calm your soul. Why is it the case that you cannot do this? Why is it the case that I cannot do this? My tears have been my food day and night. A bit of a dramatic statement there, but it still gets the point across. And I think it is a profound point. That is to say, if you feast upon your food, or if you feast upon your tears, rather, and this is something that is your food, and food is something that sustains you, in a sense it keeps you alive, it gives you life, it gives you vitality, energy. Of course, this is not literal. It can't be literal. But I think if we were to put this in different words, my tears, or rather my suffering, has been the thing that it's the engine that drives the material body forward. This sort of divine spark that is the conscious mind of man, at this moment for this psalmist, is being driven forth by nothing other than his suffering, which is a rather unfortunate thing, a profound thing in my mind. I know that I opened this by talking about pretty much just this thing, about moving away from the rock, about not really understanding where I am, where my mind is in this destabilization and the sort of encroaching anxiety that's around the periphery of every thought that I have. This is it in Psalm 42. I think this person is going through the exact same thing. These things I remember as I pour out my soul, how I would go with the throng and lead them in processions to the house of God. And this is after those who say, "Where is your God?" with glad shouts and songs of praise, a multitude keeping festival. And so I think that line there, a multitude keeping festival, I'm not quite sure exactly what he's referring to there. But the general idea here is that even though the psalmist recognizes his current state of mind, when they ask him, he will bring them into the way of being that he knows will lead them to the house of God. And it is with the glad shouts and songs of praise, this festival, that he is going to, as we were talking about earlier, as we opened this podcast with, find or use as an entry point to life. Because at the point at which we are suffering, this sort of existential suffering, the torrent that surrounds our static immobility, and the static immobility can find us at the most strange times. It could find us in a place of literal immobility, in which we don't move from our bedroom on a day off from work. It could find us at work when we're deeply dissatisfied with what we do. This torrent and this suffering can find us. And he says the way to solve this is through praising, through glad shouts and songs of praise, a multitude keeping festival. This is the entry point to life, to return and to find that rock of stability. And I can't help but think, in our modern day, we have our festivals, but they are so diluted and superficial. We've given in so strongly to the hyper-rational. We've given in so strongly to the superficial worth. Our money and the value that is behind it is purely material. The families in our society have suffered a major blow, I think, to its structure and to its continued formation. Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. And so this is just it. This is exactly it. He's speaking to his soul. He says, don't be cast down, because I will again praise in him. I will again partake in this entry point to life. And for me, one of the entry points is doing just this, is reading the Bible, talking into a microphone, to absolutely nobody that will listen, but just the act of being and doing and exploring the finer things of what it means to satisfy the soul and to find God is enough to satisfy the soul. And when I'm not engaged in it, this question in verse 5, why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you in turmoil within me? It comes back up. And so I know by experience, I can feel what the psalmist must have felt. And I really do appreciate this wisdom. For it's not something that you can purchase, but it's something that can be had if one is to so choose it. Now I have to wonder here, and forgive me, it might take me some time to unpack this, but this is the second half of verse 5, where he says, "My soul is cast down within me, therefore I remember you. From the land of Jordan and of Hermon, from Mount Mizar." And it continues into verse 7, "Deep calls to deep, at the roar of your waterfalls. All your breakers and your waves have gone over me." And so in previous podcast episodes, I've been talking about this vertical structure of reality. Certainly not the whole of it, but it represents a good portion of our reality. In this vertical space, we had the higher end being of the divine, the heavenly, the more sophisticated principles of the conscious mind, that of law, government, virtue, morality, ethics. We can include in there the soul, justice. And then as we move down in this vertical reality, we find ourselves moving into the more material, the earthly. And here we have many tools, just as we have many tools for the divine, the biblical tools, the tools given to us by the saints, by the various philosophers throughout the ages. But in this lower register, we have science, we have material causality, we have the earthly principle. Now when I read this in Psalm 42, "My soul is cast down within me, therefore I remember you. From the land of Jordan and of Hermon, from Mount Mizar, deep calls to deep, at the roar of your waterfalls. All your breakers and your waves have gone over me." I think of somebody saying that since my soul is cast down, since I can appreciate this depth, and within this suffering, I can remember the higher. I remember you. And I think he's referring to God there. And of course this is placed in the upper register, the heavenly principle. And we can think of it as an extension of this verticality, but also this depth as an interesting detour, because it's not as if this depth of soul leads one into purely materialistic reasoning. I suppose it's possible. But also, I think we can imagine, if we were to expand this geometry, sort of a horizontal component, the sort of place in time, in which we have a certain level of understanding. But in order to achieve the higher level, we sort of extend out into a certain depth of suffering. And this depth of suffering allows us to understand that, if I can fall to this point, again, this is a vertical illustration, even though I'm trying to represent it as a horizontal one. I can appreciate the height at which I fell from. And in appreciating that, I can also appreciate a higher height yet still to climb. Deep calls to deep. I think we see this idea that I've put forth in that statement. The deep calls to deep. In one hand, you have the deep of the suffering. On the other hand, you have the deep of the divine grace. At the roar of your waterfalls, all your breakers and your waves have gone over me. By day the Lord commands his steadfast love, and at night his song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. And so it's a beautiful statement, because by day, of course not indicating literally in the daytime with the sun above, but it implies what it means within the soul for the sun to be above. It means for the light, for security, and of intelligibility, the ability to properly perceive and be one with existence and life, sort of be absorbed in whatever they are doing, and be satisfied in understanding that what they are doing is towards a good end. And it's, I think, in this example, in this daylight of the intelligible, this perceiving mind, that the love is received by the individual. But there's also this admission of faith in the second sense, in the second line, which it says, and at night his song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. So when things are dark, they don't seem to make sense. The world's intelligibility is less than it would be otherwise. We find ourselves in that place again of insecurity, of anxiety, of not knowing. At night, his song is with me. And so that is faith. Again, that's not an abandonment of reason. It's the exact opposite. Because one is faltering within their reason. The very intelligibility of the universe is escaping them. And yet in these states of mind, the very minimum that one can do is still retain the faith that it is there, and that we find it again through practice, through engaging with the world back into a sense of being, back into that oneness and that unity. And I think that's such a beautiful statement. So allow me to continue with Psalm 43, which is titled, Send Out Your Light and Your Truth. Vindicate me, O Lord, and defend my cause against an ungodly people. From the deceitful and unjust man, deliver me. For you are the God in whom I take refuge. Why have you rejected me? Why do I go about mourning? Because of the oppression of my enemy. Send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy hill and to your dwelling. Then I will go to the altar of God, to God, my exceeding joy, and I will praise you with the lyre, O my God. Why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. So, again, somewhat similar. In this case, he's asking for the light, sort of to guide his way. Again, he's saying, vindicate me, defend my cause against the ungodly people. Because this cause, like with many causes, they take shape and they take root in our material reality. Institutions prop up around these causes. People pursue professions for certain reasons, again for certain causes. Perhaps one person wants to help another to improve their health. Perhaps one person wants to help another by providing a particular service. They gain knowledge of how to work with wood to wire a house. And this is what they have to offer. This is their cause. And there are no shortage of causes. And there are no shortage of institutions, again, that surround these causes. And these ungodly institutions, the one that attempts to perhaps use that cause and pervert its morality to make it primarily about money, to make it something other than it really is, or that it ought to be on its surface, so that it tempts people to participate in something that it really is not. And so this appeal, this asking for vindication and defense against the ungodly, from the deceitful and the unjust, asking for deliverance, is just this. It is asking for insight. It is asking for light and the truth to be led forward, not to be corrupted by these institutions, not to be corrupted by the men who would use a cause for a wicked purpose. And it concludes in verse 5, "Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God." So it's just this constant reminder that your insecurity may be now. You may now feel like you're being swept up by the torrent, by the river. But have faith in this process. But have faith in the finer things. The security of justice, the security of truth. And I would say that, just for the sake of consistency, the security of truth, both in the material sense, in the physical sense, this cause and effect, cause and relationship sense, but also in the sense of the truth of meaning, of purpose, of direction, of this sort of ethical security. Psalm 44. Come to our help. To the choir master, a maskil of the sons of Korah. O God, we have heard with our ears, our fathers have told us, what deeds you performed in their days, in the days of old. You with your own hand drove out the nations, but them you planted. You afflicted the people, but them you set free. For not by their own sword did they win the land. nor did their own arm save them, but your right hand and your right arm, and the light of your face, for you delighted in them. You are my king, O God. Ordain salvation for Jacob. Though through you we push down our foes. Through your name we tread down those who rise up against us. For not in my bow do I trust, nor can my sword save me. But you have saved us from our foes, and have put to shame those who hate us. In God we have boasted continually, and we will give thanks to your name forever. But you have rejected us and disgraced us, and have not gone out with our armies. You have made us turn back from the foe, and those who hate us have gotten spoil. You have made us like sheep for slaughter, and have scattered us among the nations. You have sold your people for a trifle, demanding no high price for them. You have made us the taunt of our neighbors, the derision and scorn of those around us. You have made us a byword among the nations, a laughingstock among the peoples. All day long my disgrace is before me, and shame has covered my face. At the sound of the taunter and reliever, at the sight of the enemy and the avenger. All this has come upon us, though we have not forgotten you, and we have not been false to your covenant. Our heart has not turned back, nor have our steps departed from your way. Yet you have broken us in place of jackals, and covered us with the shadow of death. If we had forgotten the name of our God, or spread out our hands to a foreign God, would not God discover this? For he knows the secrets of the heart. Yet for your sake, we are killed all the day long. We are regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. Awake. Why are you sleeping, O Lord? Rouse yourself. Do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face? Why do you forget our affliction and oppression? For our soul is bowed down to the dust. Our belly clings to the ground. Rise up, come to our help. Redeem us for the sake of your steadfast love. So quite the psalm there. Let's see what we can make of it. So the psalm begins with a bit of history. They say, we understand and we have heard from our fathers what you've done in the past. You with your own hand drove out the nations, but them, referring to their fathers, you planted. You afflicted the peoples, but them you set free, again referring to their fathers. And then he says, it wasn't due to our fathers' swords that they gained the land. It was because of God's right hand. It was because of God's stability. It was because of the way that they pursued, which led them to their salvation. And again, the way is conditional. We have to understand this. Because we can imagine a scenario, again, in the end of the psalm, they point at it. And they say, in a sense, why have you forsaken us? You know, we remember you. And we walk in your covenant. We do what you say. And yet we are treated like sheep. This scenario is not the same as the scenario that played out for our fathers. We don't understand why this is happening. So of course we can ask the question, is it happening because what they believe is the true way of what they're doing now is actually false? Do they fail to see something? Are they indeed actually walking in the righteous path? And their foes are just too strong or too whatever, and they trample over the success of these faithful people. Again, they make the recognition that it's not within their tools that they can find salvation. It's not within the bow. It's not within the sword. It's within something loftier that they will find it. But the kicker is, verse 9, "But you have rejected us, disgraced us, and have not gone out with our armies. You have made us turn back from the foe, and those who hate us have gotten spoil. You have made us like sheep for slaughter, and have scattered us among the nations. You have sold your people for trifle, demanding no high price for them. You have made us the taunt of our neighbors, the derision and scorn of those around us." And it continues in this way. And it culminates with the ending verses. "Awake! Why are you sleeping, O Lord? Rouse yourself. Do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face? Why do you forget our afflictions and oppression? For our soul is bowed down to the dust. Our belly clings to the ground. Rise up, come to our help. Redeem us for the sake of your steadfast love." And so again, the question is, I'm not sure it could be answered here with the available information, but the question is, why are you sleeping? What are the conditions for which man can find himself in a state of darkness in which God appears to have fallen asleep in front of him? The battles of everyday life, the decisions that we have to make, it seems as though we go out and we can't find solace. We can't find a firm bit of ground to plant our leg on, to propel ourselves forward in the face of such monumentous life changes and decisions. Why are you sleeping? Rouse yourself. Give me this intelligibility. Of course, the intelligibility is there, but it's about the way of seeing. If one cannot see a way, they have to find a way. And they should not take that step until they know what lies before them. They should be prepared. They should understand. And so another interesting psalm here. The next psalm, Psalm 45. "Your throne, O God, is forever. To the choir master, according to the lilies, a maskil of the sons of Korah, a love song." So this is the first one of these in the Psalms that we've come across. "My heart overflows with a pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore God has blessed you forever. Grind your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty ride out victoriously for the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness. Let your right hand teach you awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies. The people fall under you. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are all fragrant, with myrrh and aloes and cassia. From ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor. At your right hand stands the queen in gold at Ophir. Hear, O daughter, and consider and incline your ear. Forget your people and your father's house, and the king will desire your beauty. Since he is your lord, bow to him. The people of Tyre will seek your favor and with gifts, the richest of the people. All glorious is the princess in her chamber, with robes interwoven with gold. In many-colored robes she is led to the king, with her virgin companions followed behind her. With joy and gladness they are led along as they enter the palace of the king. And the palace of your fathers shall be your sons. You will make them princes in all the earth. I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore nations will praise you forever and ever. What is life without its vibrancy? What is it to have the attention of the conscious mind drawn away from the finer things? To be perpetually focused beneath the surface. Focused beneath what matters. Underneath the very thing that sustains us. If this happens to a man or an individual, what he is sustained by is no longer his own will, but something outside of him, external to him, another person perhaps. A culture that had lost its way, wound up in the spirit of superficiality, stuck inside of a dull nature. There are those who, in every age, carry the light, they carry the torch, so to speak, from place to place, from day to day. And it's not those who wish to do others harms that do so. Often they are in positions of authority where the unintended consequences may appear that this is the case. There are those, perhaps, of little means that take this torch by their own effort of will, by their own concern about the future, despite the burning house that surrounds them. They sacrifice themselves, they sacrifice their life for this light, for this torch, and they throw it as far and as hard as they can into the future, hoping that it stays lit in the process. I'm not sure where I've been or where I have yet to go, but I know at this moment there is a hunger There's a hunger for that torch. There's a hunger for the accumulation of something, the absence of which, the consequences we can't quite imagine. And there is a desire to give it to somebody other than myself. My heart overflows with the pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. And so we find an entry point to life. How can we describe it? What objective facts? What experiments can we observe to tell us this feeling, the moment in which the heart is full, ready to burst forth? You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty ride out victoriously for the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness. Let your right hand teach you awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies, and the peoples fall under you. I don't necessarily want to read the whole thing again, but what can be said of certain psalms, if not that they must be embodied? The process of reading them must be continuous. For we've discussed many times that the cause of truth, righteousness, awesome deeds, these things the Psalms have yet to reveal to us. We are 45 Psalms in. Perhaps they have revealed some things to us. Undoubtedly they have. They've given us understanding about our place, about the direction that we must move in as people thrown into a seemingly vast space of nothingness, an existence of perhaps seemingly empty. Certainly not empty of material things. But within the mind of a full stomach, our reality changes. We require different nutrients. Nutrients that are required by a different organ. And this organ is the soul. Materially, we would try to describe this organ. Perhaps it's made of memory. Perhaps it's made of the way our senses are mapped and integrated into our perception of the external world. Perhaps it's all of these things. Perhaps it is the entirety of the conscious mind that comprises the soul. But this language does not do justice. And in this sense, justice, by justice, I mean it does not give the soul the dignity it deserves for a purely material explanation. We only understand its parts. We don't understand its purpose. We don't understand its desires. Anyone can look in the mirror, but it is for the finer sort of people to be able to look in the mirror and recognize that what they see is something more. They recognize the possibility of genuine joy, of righteous satisfaction that is liberated from base desire. The feeling of sitting upon a human throne, this throne secondary to the divine, but nonetheless elevated. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are all fragrant with myrrh and aloes of cassia. From ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor. At your right hand stands the queen in gold of Ophir. Hear, O daughter, and consider and incline your ear. Forget your people and your father's house, and the king will desire your beauty. Since he is your Lord, bow to him. The people of Tyre will seek your favor with gifts, the richest of the people. And so perhaps I don't have much to say about this Psalm 45, except that it does fill me with a certain sense of being. And for what those words are worth, these Psalms have given me reflection. Reflection on the possibility of my heart and my soul and its relationship to the divine throne and its infinite nature. You know, there's a common thread here that I would like to pause and reflect on. A friend of mine mentioned recently that he can see God within the keys on his keyboard. And I don't know what he meant by this. Someday, no doubt, I will ask him what he meant by this. But again, he sees God in his keyboard, between the keys, subtly interwoven. Into it, he sees God. And that provoked in me the example of C.S. Lewis and his depiction of the divine, this creator that is outside of the universe, that can observe all, that knows time, its beginning and its end, like an author who has written a novel, at once everywhere present in the novel, leaving hints and clues of his spirit, of his thought, and yet nowhere in the story is he present. And so God is within the keys. So I'd like to return to that at a later point. God is in our fortress. This is Psalm 46. And we will pick this up next time.